welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. We are live here in the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa. We do have the aforementioned John Hendrickson here today. John, it's been a couple weeks.
Yes.
We were actually out. We've been doing real work. Part of our work that we were at a conference last week. Some of the members of the team wanted to give you some new nicknames and monikers. Are we? And I think there was a hope that we would roll with that here on the show. But I can tell that you have some trepidation about that before I even go any further with this. You'd rather skip that part. You just want to be the professorial John Hendrickson that's saving Western civilization. Not what may or may not have been you were exposed to on Bourbon Street.
That's right.
We're just going to leave that. Let the folks wonder. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, John's a wild man when he's off camera, guys. I that may come as a shock to all of you, but anyway, we're back here in the comfortable confines of the Hendrickson Library, where the world makes sense, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Are you ready to roll?
I am, yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, we need to catch up on a few things here. So, construction update. We've got some fancy new lights behind me. I'm not sure that they work, but they're really exciting. We're trying to jazz this place up a little bit, so we're going to play around with some different things. So, let us know if you have any ideas or anything about how we set up the studio. But we're all the main purpose of all is to try and get you more excited.
Yes, yeah.
And so if as long as we keep you animated and ready to go on the issues of the day.
I'm looking forward to some patriotic decorations, and I envision a nice American flag. Maybe we could borrow some of those Roman pillars from that one booth we saw from the last conference.
Yeah, that's great. Those were exciting. I thought about moving Lincoln up here in the front. Longtime listeners remember we had our mascot, the gnome that sat out on the table.
Yeah.
So we may do some of that kind of stuff. Put some fun stuff out here on the table once I get rid of the nondescript Initech desk that we've got going on here. All right, so John, fall is here. Once we get past Labor Day, fall is here. It's college football season. Are you excited about the Cy-Hawk battle, or do you have some presidential biographies?
I'll be
okay.
Yep.
We got to mention it. It's standard issue for anybody that's doing anything in media. You have to mention the Iowa State football game, but that's exciting. I think mostly I bring that up as a segue to getting past Labor Day seems to be this sort of mythical date at which political talk, the next legislative session seems to kind of jumpstart, kick into gear, and people start getting a lot more serious about what's going on. Now, we had Sarah Curry was in the office. I don't know if it was Wednesday or yesterday. It's all a blur. But, we've got a lot of local elections coming on, and you're seeing a lot of that's coming online, and people are really starting to take much more of a focus on that, although I have said if our candidates are just starting to get serious about their campaigns after Labor Day, they're sunk. Mm-hmm. But because they should have been going already. But school's back in session, summer's over, vacations are done, all that's done, and now they kind of get back to their regular lives a little bit. And so I think we'll see a renewed focus on campaigns and elections and the coming legislative session. So we're going to be a part of that here today, looking at some of that. But I want to just almost by way of housekeeping, last time we were together, we teased out that there was going to be one more entrant in the gubernatorial race. And so we've seen that, and I knew who it was at the time, but I didn't want to spill it. And it was within, I think, hours of us recording. But Adam Steen is joined. I don't know if he actually stepped down from his role as the director of administrative services in the state of Iowa, but I've known Adam a long time. Great guy. And I think he does add something to this race. We'll see how that all fits in. There's a lot of folks that have been out campaigning for a long time already. And so I don't want to say he's late to the game, but they got a head start. And we'll see how that plays out. So, any other thoughts on the governor's race?
Not yet. I mean, there's I think the Republicans need to kind of step up a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that
Yeah.
yesterday, John, and I think that's a good point. And I think, what is the message right now? And I think that it has been, I think they're all sort of test driving some different messages and finding out what Republican primary owners want to hear from. I mean, frankly, a couple of these candidates haven't actually formally announced that they're in this race. The presumptive frontrunner, Randy Feenstra, has not announced. I think he's still in this sort of
exploratory committee.
Now we all
Yeah.
know what's going on here, but in addition, Senator Mike Busolo, we don't know for sure what his plans will ultimately be.
Yeah.
But he's going to all the events, doing all the things. So it comes back to that idea. Okay, we're past Labor Day now. Things need to come into focus, and we need to get down to who's in the field, what is their message. And we want to do some real work on what that message is, right? And coming back, my very long-winded way of coming back around to your point, what do you want to see out of this? And I think that what do you want to hear from these Republican or Democrat, or what do you want to hear?
What I want to hear is I want to see right now, from my perspective, I see that Rob Sand has an open playing field right now, and he's running the state and basically allowing to set a narrative that Iowa's a broken place, that our fiscal policies have failed us, and we have poisonous drinking water, and I think we need to start responding to that message. I don't think our fiscal policies have been reckless. I think our state has done some very good things in terms of policies, and I think as conservatives, as Republicans, we need to start defending some of those.
I think I don't disagree with that, John. Where I would maybe put a little bit different point on it, rather than defending what critics say, I'd rather spend the energy talking about what's right and what we've done, and that the policies we put in place are responsible, they honor taxpayers, and they're going to work. We have to continue on with the same resolve that we had before, specifically with regard to fiscal discipline. We're going to get into that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear a message of why Iowa's broken. I want to hear a message of how you're going to take Iowa to the next level. And it's too much of the. Can we always do things better? Absolutely. And we should aspire to that, regardless of who's in power, who's running, or what's next. But we do need more messaging about what we're going to do. And I think Iowans ultimately want to hear solutions. Here's the problem, here's the solution, here's what I want. Right now, I think the very clear one is property taxes. Here's a problem that Iowans, I don't want to say universally, but the vast majority of them understand there's a real problem there, and they want to hear about what your solution is.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so we'll see, but
yeah.
I think there's a very clear one where we need candidates to identify the problem and identify a solution.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm eager to hear that too, and
yeah.
I think that will come. And I think specifically with Rob Sand, this is what happens when there isn't an active primary. Is he is traveling the state, operating as a general election candidate right now, while the Republican candidates are in a primary.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this too. I believe that a competitive primary makes the ultimate nominee a better candidate. You get out, you get in front of voters, you do that hard work, and you hone the message, and it makes you a better messenger once you get to the general election. So I'm looking for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to also update, and we talked about this earlier too, John, on the U.S. Senate race. And I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times, but I kind of saw this all coming, and I don't want to pat myself on the back, but Senator Ernst finally announced that she is not running for re-election, which is something that I think insiders had widely expected, or at least were very wondering about, because she had not really put things into motion for that. And that if Senator Ernst did not seek re-election, that Congresswoman Ashley Hinson would immediately become the front runner for that. I think that's all happened, it seems like, and the front runner status, I think, was you forwarded. I think it was in the Register this morning.
Yes,
that the leader John Thune and the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, have sort of thrown their weight behind Congresswoman Hinson as their sort of preferred candidate. It's not determinative, and it is sort of insiders picking their candidate. But I think clearly Ashley is going to be a formidable candidate. I think even more so in the general than even in the primary. Thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right on that. I think some of the early endorsements follow that analysis, and
I think one I will give credit to. Look, Ashley's my friend, so I think she's going to do a great job, but she does a lot of retail work in Iowa. I can tell you she spends a lot of time staying in connected with the various electeds in her district and people across the state of Iowa. She's not just a member of Congress who's deciding to come back to Iowa, and she has maintained very deep roots among the district that she represents, and I think that will make her a very strong campaigner, a formidable candidate. It also opens up what will be a fairly wide open race for her congressional seat, which is not receiving nearly as much attention. I've seen a couple of names just right off the bat. I heard was Representative Shannon Lundgren. I believe Shannon's from Piasta. Is interested in that, and then former Congressman Rod Blum is also interested in maybe seeking that. So I haven't heard anything official from either of them, but those are a couple names I think right out of the gate that folks in the 2nd District, which is roughly northeast Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Dubuque, and points north from there is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I was really excited to see former Congressman Rod Blum as a possibility because I really liked him when he was in Congress. So that's who I'm hoping for. Yeah,
I think both Representative Lundgren and Rod Blum could credibly say that they are America First, MAGA type candidates. I think they both were supportive of the president. I know that Rod Blum was almost outspoken in support of him back in 2016. So I don't think that shapes up as differing wings of the party or anything like that. I think they just are both going to go make their case to voters, and we'll see. So it's just a lot going on out there. You've got.
I didn't realize I was listening to our favorite channel last night, and but I forget. I should have wrote it down, but it was. It's been decades since we've had an open Senate and open governors.
Oh yeah,
race, and it just that was, and I forget what it was. 68 maybe they said 1968, and it just. It's
wide open. It is kind of fun to shuffle the deck and find out, but there is how I'd put it, an unknown with that. You'll see the traditional media frame this up as the future of the party. I've seen others in the base of the party like this is a battle for the soul of the party. I kind of discount some of that talk. I think the base of the Republican Party, the conservative movement, that endures no matter who they elect. Now it can be shaped by that. I don't think there's any question that Iowa Republican voters are conservatives. They have molded a little bit over time to become a little bit more America First or a little more populist. But I would actually submit that Iowa's kind of had that sort of element for a long time. And the people will ultimately get to decide. But it's important, and we should vet these candidates. And whether it's the U.S. Senate, governor, Congress, it's down to the state legislative level, which those haven't really come into focus yet, who's running, who's not. But, what are the questions? What should they be talking about? What do we expect out of them? And we will spend considerable time either here on the podcast or through what we write or through our ITR pack determining what some of those things are, because it is important. And ultimately, Iowans need to go out and find out who they want to have lead them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, we've got John Hendrickson here that's going to hold everybody's feet to the fire.
Yes,
that's what he does. He's not just the gold standard in entertainment. He is the yardstick by which conservatism is measured in the state of Iowa. Is that fair? Or was that too dramatic?
I don't know. I would like.
I think above all else, any partisan candidate should want the Hendrickson seal of approval.
Yeah.
I would aspire to that.
Yeah,
So, okay,
yeah.
all of you out there, just be forewarned that I'm looking to find out who John approves of. That's where we'll go from there. Okay, well, I want to also spend some time, John, on there's, I don't know how to frame this up right, but the revenue numbers in the state of Iowa. So that because there's been some news articles and some releases, what do things look like with regard to the amount of money that is being collected by the state of Iowa coming into the coffers? And I don't want to go too deep in the actual numbers because that's more for the written article. People can try and digest those. I mean, we'll mention, we're not trying to shy away from that, but just in the here on a audio podcast, video podcast, it doesn't play out very well. But I'm going to try and frame this up, and then I want you to sort of take it away a little bit. We knew both when we passed the income tax cuts, and we could see that in the different REC estimates, that the state would be collecting less revenue than they would have without that bill. So that would be less revenue being collected than even the state budget for a while. We knew that. So that should not be a shock. And if you see the article that, state revenues plummet, well, it's really not fair when a fair amount of that is by design, and we knew it would happen and it was all planned out. Now, we have seen the first 2 months of actual revenue for the coming fiscal year 26, which is the one that the legislature passed a budget for this year going forward, and those are even a little bit lower than what the March REC had predicted. So it is fair to say that revenues are coming in lower than expected. Now, that total amount, I don't know, is as, the top line number looks bad, but a lot of that had been factored in. So, okay, I'm trying to just frame this up and set the stage. Like, what's your take on this? Where are we at, and what should, not just Iowa taxpayers, but what should those of us in the policy world, and what should legislators and policy, what should they be looking at with this? And what's on your mind?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. I think you kind of summed it up really good, and what they're focusing on is the decline in specifically income tax revenue. And so and the big number they're pointing at is that income tax revenue in July and August declined close to 19%.
And when when we say decline 19, that is compared to those same 2 months a year before.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. And so and this is where it gets complicated because, as you mentioned, it is the result of a combination of things. Two big factors. One is the flat tax, the acceleration of the flat tax, and the legislators knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Nope.
Because what's happening here is that money is not lost. It's being kept in the productive side of the economy, which means in taxpayers' hands, and individuals and businesses are keeping more of their money that they earn. And it's not being taken out in income taxes. And so that's one thing that we need to consider on this. The other thing is the economic situation that Iowa's in, that we have to keep in mind, that predicting revenue is incredibly difficult for the people who serve on the REC. And so right now, and we've seen this not just this year, but last year, Iowa, especially in terms of agriculture, has been struggling. We've seen this with layoffs in terms of some of the major agricultural companies. We've seen the ag economy struggling, and there's still the national economic uncertainty. People are still struggling with inflation. So that has an impact as well on revenue. I think it's too early to say, and it's not fair to say that this is the fault of the tax cuts, because we haven't had the flat taxes only come in January.
Right. Well,
and so the other thing, I just want to mention this quickly too, is that I want to just address this rumor that Iowa is deficit spending. and this is very technical, but I think this is an important point, is that the purpose of what the legislature did was to, we have the taxpayer relief fund, which was intended to provide tax relief, and when they accelerated the flat tax to 3.8, the taxpayer relief fund is working as intended to serve as a cushion for the budget to cover that. And so I think that's an important point to keep in mind. And we look at the projections of and of course we'll get a fresh look at projections in October when the REC meets again, but the fiscal foundation of the state is still looking good.
Yeah.
With projected surpluses and with the taxpayer relief fund. And so I think that the big lesson in this, from my perspective, is there is an iceberg straight ahead, but that iceberg straight ahead is watch your spending.
Yeah, very well said.
What causes a fiscal crisis is massive government spending.
We said this at the time when there was, even on people that were wanting to go down the path of income tax reform. Well, I don't, we're worried about our ability to meet our obligations. You still, legislator X, get to control spending in those out years. You still get to decide. Now, they may be decisions you don't necessarily want to make, but they still get to decide that. Here's what I've got a couple of thoughts. One is, yes, a big chunk of this is because of the tax cuts. We are taking less money out of Iowans' pockets because of those tax cuts. Great. Wasn't that the point? Is that we were taking less money away from Iowans. We're letting them keep more. We should celebrate that.
That's right, yeah.
The only question is whether the state can continue to meet its priority obligations in doing that, okay? Now, we got a plan that because of the money that had been saved up ahead of time, and because of that state revenues will continue to grow over time, is those will match up and everything will work out. Is this less than we planned on? Yeah, a little bit. It's also only 2 months. We should be mindful of this. The budget, the appropriators should be mindful of this. But let's not pretend that taking in less money from Iowans is anything but a good thing. It may not allow you to continue to spend as much as you want, but taking less money from Iowans is good. It's not bad. Second point, it's only a couple of months. And especially around the changeover of the fiscal year, which is June 30th to July 1, there's always some I don't want to say difficulty, but the accounting for that, money gets kind of moved around. And then how money it can just be mechanically kind of bumpy, even in just 2 months. For example, on sales tax collections, you may have, the year prior may have had 5, if it's due on a Friday, they may have been, they're due weekly, right? There may have been 5 weeks instead of 4 in a given year, and that throws, there's always some of that little bumpiness. And I'm not trying to explain away everything, because clearly Iowa's ag economy is really struggling. And shame on anyone that wants to try and blame that on tax cuts or Republican policymakers, because if the left wants to criticize Republicans for the state of Iowa's ag economy, like, you're the ones that want to overregulate it and drive it into bankruptcy. So spare me. It is what it is. Commodity prices are down and it's tough out there. Inputs are high. We will see. Could be a bumper crop this year. Probably record yields across the board. Now, does that drive the price even low? I don't know. But let's wait and see what that is before anybody wants to go out and press the panic button, because any of that is premature. But the very most important thing through all of that is a cautionary tale to our legislature that they've got to stop spending. Is that the money that you think is there is spoken for by design, by the way you planned it. And I know that there's built-in spending coming down, whether it be on Medicaid or other things that you may feel have to be done. And maybe they even do have to be done. But the net has to stop growing for this all to work. So, just maybe a freebie for folks. Where can you go look for some money? We could talk about some of the, the handouts that we make. You do the handouts inside of the income tax code, some of the exemptions to sales. All of these things, you got to quit handing them out. They all come to the bottom line, or, economic goodies that we hand out. All of that stuff needs to be on the table right now because we don't have a lot of extra money to do it if you want to continue to meet the priority needs of Iowans. But it will work, but it's a reminder that we need to be very careful going forward.
That's right, yeah. And I think that's well said. And the other thing I'll just offer a reminder is look at, and I know people probably get sick of hearing this, but I think it's important. Look at what's going on in other states. And so if the tax and spend model worked, Minnesota would not be in a deficit situation. California would not be where it's at. Yep. Illinois. Those are states that are basically trying to spend themselves into prosperity, and it's just not working.
Nope.
And that's what the other side is saying, and that's what, you just can't do that. You can't repeal the law of economics, as they say. The other thing I just want to say is that on the national economic front is the one, and it's a terrible name, the One Big Beautiful Bill. I hate calling it that.
I don't like that either one either.
But anyways, I do think there's going to be some positives out of that. And I think it's important to remember that I know it's a controversial bill, and there's things in there I don't like about it, but it prevented a massive tax increase.
Correct.
And that would have been devastating to not just Iowa taxpayers, but to the national economy. And I think some of the tax reforms that are in there are going to have a positive impact, not just on individual taxpayers, but on businesses, which I think will start benefiting the economy, not just in Iowa, but nationally.
Well, and I think some of that we are starting to see new business investment pick up since that bill nationally. I think that's exactly right. That would have had a devastating impact on individuals and businesses across the country to not extend some of the, and there are good provisions in there. I'm right there with you. There's things in there that I don't care for. I'm concerned in how that impacts Iowa's tax code and how we couple with those provisions. We're going to dig into that. We have been digging into that. It is as complicated as the bill is. Analyzing the impacts of it is in many ways even more complicated. And I think that's going to be a real challenge for the October REC is what does this mean for Iowa? And we'll try and unpack that some more going forward. But I think it's important even though at the micro level of what does this do to this particular tax type or this particular revenue stream, we shouldn't lose sight of the macro idea that this is a positive for the nation and Iowa's economy, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, and we will have much more to say on that going forward.
I just think it's worth repeating what you said, and I think that's one thing to keep in mind as these revenue reports come out. People are being allowed to keep more of their income, and that's not a bad thing. And I liked how you said that, and I think that's important because that's forgotten. It just whether it's on the local level, state or federal level, it always seems like government it's their money, and it's not their money. It's not created by them. And,
it's very easy to fall into that trap, especially if you are spend your time inside the Capitol. Is that you see this pot of money and the things we want to do with it, because the state budget is the biggest thing that they deal with every year, and you want to do the things, and it's not a criticism. It's not a big government idea. It's just a mindset of the world you live in. But I can tell you from having been inside there, it's very easy to lose the perspective of that's taxpayer money. And it comes out just in the way it's talked about. You talk about the budget numbers and how much do we have to spend and just the way it's always taxpayer money. And less of it being collected from Iowans is a good thing. Now, if it's an indicator of Iowans don't have as much in their own pockets, so they don't pay as much in taxes, well, okay, we'll have that conversation as well. But it is the people of Iowa are better served when they have more of their own hard-earned money in their pocket, and it's a good thing. And I think too, there's an idea that we should continue to celebrate that we enacted these tax cuts and not shy away from it. Multiple elections have been won.
Yes.
Majorities have been won on the backs of delivering tax relief for Iowans. That is a popular thing. Look, if Republicans want to litigate the next election over who's going to give more money for public education or who's going to deliver the most entitlement benefits, they can welcome to give that a try. But I suspect that won't be as successful for them as going out and talking about the tax relief they've enacted. How many state legislative candidates ran their campaigns in the last election on I'm going to go back to the Capitol and get you property tax relief, or I enacted this income tax? Because for fiscal conservatives, that is the thing that Iowans will respond to because they want that relief. They understand that they are overtaxed, especially on the property taxes. So it's a winning message. They should not be afraid of it and not be afraid to talk about it that way. Yeah, we're going to have some challenges. We got to balance this budget. We got to make some tough decisions. And we're going to make those decisions so that we can make sure we continue to give you those income tax cuts that we already delivered for you, that we know are helping you and your family and the future economy of the state of Iowa, and just deliver that message.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. I agree. And it's a model that works.
Yeah.
I mean, we can
politically, John, if you're explaining you're losing, you got to get out front and tell people why you did what you did, how it's going to work, how it's better for them and their family, and own it, because that's what people are talking about. It's kitchen table issues, and it's Republican or Democrat. The candidates that focus on what Iowans are talking about, it's a tired old the kitchen table issues, but that's what it is. Yeah. So talk about them. Yeah. The impact family budgets.
You're absolutely
Great.
Right.
Got anything else for us, John?
I do have two more things.
Good, great, let's go.
One is just a kind of a national political story that is just on the campaign front, and this comes from the Washington Times, and it's about Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear.
Mm-hmm. Democrat.
Democrat, and he's sort of rising to the top of prospective presidential candidates, but Sirius XM, which I believe is the satellite radio.
Yep.
Announced that it was giving Mr. Beshear's new podcast a national platform starting this month, along with featuring him in a regular call-in show on its Progress Network. Mm-hmm. And so he's being featured more as sort of a moderate Democrat, and he's been traveling to different states as well. Mm-hmm. So prediction, I bet we'll see Mr. Beshear in Iowa pretty soon.
Well, look, this should come as a surprise to no one, because we've already established that if you want to build a big national brand to run for president, we get John Hendrickson on a podcast. You've already written the script, right? Yeah. So we're going to put out John as sort of this national political voice for who knows what's next. We say that it's just for preserving Western civilization. Yeah, it could be for even much more than that. Yeah. So he's just copying your playbook.
Right, yeah.
But I do think you'll see Andy Beshear in Iowa. But again, as much as maybe the liberal cocktail party club in Washington D.C. wants to have a moderate like Andy Beshear, I don't think that's what the base of the party's in the market for.
Yeah.
I think that he has been in that position to win statewide elections in a state like Kentucky. Yeah. But that is what I know of base Democrat voters. I'd be surprised if that's what they're genuinely looking for.
But it reminded me, I think it's time that we syndicate our podcast.
Yeah.
As the gold standard.
Yep.
This is the flagship program.
Well, it's a big burden. I'm trying to elevate I'm trying to give you the biggest platform I can, John. I'm working on it.
And the other thing I have is we did have I believe 2 winners from our
we did.
long time from our last trivia, and I forget I don't know who answered it online, but there was someone who
we did have an online respondent, and we also had our friend former state representative Phil Thompson.
And so they.
Interestingly, though, do you remember what was the question? What was the answer?
Yeah, I should have wrote down the question, but basically, if I remember right, it was who was the Iowan who was a 2-time presidential candidate, and I believe was the first presidential candidate from Iowa, and who ran on a very progressive radical ticket.
Yeah. And so interestingly, so Phil said, well, yeah, it's, and what was the answer?
James Weaver.
James Weaver, actually a distant relative of James Weaver, and told me the whole story, things that you probably didn't even know about him.
No.
And so it was great. It's just one of those stories. I love Iowa. I just love it. You throw out something like that and somebody says, oh yeah, no, that's my, my distant cousin or something.
Yes, that was perfect. Yeah, he shared that with me as well, and that was interesting. And just for listeners, if they're curious, he first ran in 1880 on the greenback ticket, and he did not get any electoral votes, but he did get about 3% of the vote in that election. Then he ran again in 1892, but he did get 22 electoral votes. He ran under the Populist Party.
Yeah.
And then in 1896, he threw his support behind William Jennings Bryan. So that was James B. Weaver, a Civil War veteran and agrarian radical populist. So,
agrarian radical populist. I'm sitting here thinking as you go through that, and I guess the history is how would they brand the Hendrickson for president? You know, when you create your own party, it wouldn't be the Greenback Party. It'd be, the protectionist Pat Buchanan.
Yeah.
Conservative, paleo-conservative hero. And how many electoral votes could you get on that ticket? I don't know. I'm just sitting here thinking about it. It's interesting.
I might try to run as a Whig.
There you go. There you go. That's I think you could do it, John. People would love it. They would be singing your name in the streets.
I do have a question,
All right.
and then we'll close on that. But our question for this week, who was, and this should be fairly easy, who was the Pulitzer Prize winning editorial cartoonist whose cartoons appeared daily between 1900 and 1949? He also served as a official in Franklin Roosevelt's administration from 1934 to 1935 in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and he was instrumental in creating the federal duck stamp program and also the National Wildlife Federation. He was also a friend.
Is this an Iowan?
Yes, he's an Iowan. He was a good friend of President Herbert Hoover as well.
All right.
So
there you go. I like it. Well, I have no idea. So fairly easy. I guess it could be easy. I mean, that's just an indictment of me, of my knowledge of Iowa political figures over history, but I don't know. So, yeah, okay. All right, Phil, Bill Gustav, we're all looking at you guys. What's the answer? So anyway, anything else, John?
Nope, that's it.
Good.
That's it.
All right, well, I think we covered a lot of ground. I feel good about it. And much like the Iowa political universe kind of kicks into gear after Labor Day, so is the ITR Live podcast. So we're gonna be back here, refreshed and ready to go. But with that having been said, thanks everyone for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to share the episode with your friends and answer the trivia question. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.